So today's video, we're taking a look at the Annapolis, another super ship. I've been playing these ships quite a lot, and I think this ship really does best show how situational a lot of the upgrades or the super ship gimmicks can be. This ship is, of course, a super Des Moines, right? You get a Des Moines with an extra turret, which is awesome. Honestly, the ship is a ton of fun to play. The reload, the damage you can put out, and of course the burst fire giving you those 3 salvos pretty much instantly is a ton of fun to use. However, I see people using them too often. I really do think that they're best used in a situation like this, where a ship's about to go dark, it's about to get around an island, you want to get that last little burst out at them. I think that's how you want to be using these, because you're really vulnerable. You're really vulnerable after you use it because you have such a long reload, right? You have a 40-second reload after using the burst on this ship, and that's a long time to be of no threat to the enemy ship. We'll show you that a little example of that after this Petro gets taken out by us, but you got to remain disciplined, of course, in a ship like the Annapolis. It's very tempting to get those back turrets on, since now half your firepower, instead of only a third of your firepower like the Des Moines, is situated behind you. So you have to stay angled against a ship like the Petro. And even if you do, you sometimes just take massive hits. This guy's been getting some pretty insane salvos into me like there. That's, what, 10k? And I'm pretty bow on to him. That's just Petro things, I guess. But our DPM is enough to kill him here in this situation. And the Annapolis does get more HP than something like a Des Moines does, so you can afford to take a few more hits. You don't have any better armor though, of course, only 27 bow, stern, and then the 30mm on the deck and upper belt. So you're still squishy, but against anything that has 406mm guns, you're relatively tanky. So we'll run up against a Kerr first and a Conqueror, which both aren't able to overmatch us later. However, here we want to look at the Conda, right? A super powerful ship, as I've shown earlier this week. But this guy decides to use his boost, and his he just misses, right? He uses his gimmick of the insanely accurate salvo right away, and now I don't care about his guns. His rear turret's the only one that's possibly loaded right now, and it's facing the wrong way. So we can go broadside, we can get all of our guns off. I mean, we probably kill this guy anyway, but at least if he hadn't used his burst fire, we would have had to respect his guns a little bit, since the AP is quite good on something like the Conda. But I could just ignore everything he was doing there because he used his burst. So I think that's really the crucial thing, is that the burst is really good, right? If you catch a destroyer and he's about to leave your radar range, for example, you can use your burst to try and finish him off. We killed him with our normal salvo, so a bit of a waste, but it didn't matter because we weren't really going to fight anything after anyway, so it was important to finish him off. But this burst is highly situational. It's very good, don't get me wrong, it's a ton of fun to use, of course, as well, but it's very situational, where I think you often get yourself into trouble when using it more often than you actually can kill things or have better games with it. So that's why you'll see a lot of the time when I'm playing the Annapolis, I'm not actually using the burst fire all that much. Here, we may as well just take advantage of the amazing reload on a ship like the Annapolis. We've used up all our heals. This is a Conqueror. We're going to get lit on fire. We're going to die here. So this is game over. Unfortunately, we had an AFK ship, and, well, that's always going to be a difficult one to win, right? But at least the damage was decent, and we did have a pretty good impact when it came to kills in this game. So not a bad result overall, but I mean, you'd like to win them, right? Obviously, using the burst salvo here would have been great since I die, but I didn't actually end up getting to use it. So really what it comes down to with Annapolis is your DPM is your damage. Really, that's no surprise since it's basically a Des Moines. DPM is its gimmick, that's what makes it strong. And taking away all that DPM to get this salvo fire that gives you 3 salvos can be strong, but it's very rarely the right thing to do. In this game, I think I only use the gimmick of the burst fire once. And I think there's maybe one other situation later on near the end where I could have used it, but realistically, I think you just want to be using this insane reload. In that previous game, I was running range mod, but in this one, I'm actually running reload. And you can see what insane reloads you can get this ship down to. It's a 4-second reload right now, somewhere in there. And of course, that's not even using Adrenaline Rush yet. So pretty much an all-out reload build. We're not really concerned with concealment. We're not concerned with staying alive. We're going to try and use islands as much as possible to do that. This is not a build I'd recommend for most people to use. I think the concealment build with range mod is probably just going to be better in more situations. However, the reload is a ton of fun to use because you catch someone broadside. This is heavy AP that hits really, really, really hard. So something like a Yamato stuck like this, yeah, it's going to be a lot of damage coming in. So for my money, though, I would probably rather play the Conda. I think that burst is a little more usable just because of that reload booster consumable. It gets you back towards a normal DPM much quicker. I think the punishment for the Annapolis is pretty heavy for using its burst. It's a strong burst, but it's just a little too much, I think. I think 40 seconds might have overdone it. Maybe a 30-second reload after using the burst might have made more sense, because you get 3 salvos. Well, 3 salvos takes, what, 15 seconds or so in a normal reloading situation where you have around a 5-second reload. Let's say you have a 6-second reload, which is the base reload, somewhere in there, right? You still have an 18-second reload. So getting 3 salvos off and having a 40-second reload, or getting 3 salvos off in 18 seconds. It's a rough trade-off. Of course, the burst does give you that alpha right up front. So I'm not saying it's never usable, but I just think that it's hard to make use of the burst on the Annapolis. I think I've made my point. I think you get what I'm saying. So moving on in this game, we're in a bit of trouble. This Kremlin could definitely come around on us, and he, of course, can overmatch our 30 millimeters of armor, so we have to be very, very careful with him. So we're kind of getting forced to push into B here. Our team has kind of pushed through C. They've lost a little bit of ships, and this game's not going amazingly for us yet, but we're going to get B, and we should be able to stabilize once we get that, assuming we don't get rounded on by this Kremlin. And backing up here, we do have prop mods, so that's why I'm a little bit okay with reversing here. And oh boy, here comes the Kremlin shot. Fortunately, we run prop mod, and we're able to dodge just barely out of this guy's salvo. We're very lucky to get that little island piece that sticks up next to us. That really blocked where that Kremlin could have possibly shot. If he had been able to lead us a little more, that would have been a heavy hitting salvo. But now we're forced into a crossfire between the Stalingrad and, oh, a gearing? Here's this burst fire. I think in this situation, you definitely want it. As much as it leaves you vulnerable, you do want that burst against something like a DD that close range. We're stuck bow into a Stalin and a Montana, with a Kremlin maybe coming up around our side, but we got rid of the DD. It's possible our team can make this work still. And the Stalingrad appears to be going behind an island. Montana's going to, of course, bounce off of most of our armor. We actually go dark. I'm really worried about the Kremlin here, so a big risk, of course, is pulling out broadside here. If the Kremlin had gone south, we probably die here. So definitely taking some risks, but getting away with it in this game. So now that they actually allowed us to get out of this position, we have a cap lead and a points lead. And with this Kremlin pushing into B, I really do want to just DPM him down. Something that is really difficult for the aiming system to deal with is people that slow down and turn out. That's why you see people so often do that tactic when they're in a cruiser or any ship really. The auto aim system isn't very good at taking into account the speed and direction change, so that's why a lot of the times your shells will feel like they go short when somebody does a slow down and turn out. That's why oftentimes you have to aim so high when somebody does that. But if they don't do that and you aim high, your shells are going to go over. It's an unfortunate limitation of the aiming system in this game. So that's why you saw me do that there, and that's why we got away with one there. It's because the Kremlin probably aimed pretty well for us, honestly. It's just the aiming system wasn't quite able to auto-aim onto my ship there. So definitely abusing that poor aiming mechanic there and getting the Kremlin killed without taking too much damage. And that's going to round out the game. I could have used the burst fire for sure against that Kremlin, but again, I think just keeping the DPM up is just a better way of doing things. So the Annapolis is a great ship. It's a lot of fun to play, but I just don't find myself using the burst. The burst on the Conda, much better, and the battleships, of course, the Satsuma skill is amazing. So the build I was running was a bit of a funky one. I think if you've seen my Des Moines videos as of late, you'll know that I'm running a weird build. I'm not taking concealment, and I'm going for much damage output as I possibly can. So I don't recommend this for the Annapolis, but I wanted to use Halsey, and I wanted to get the reload down as much as I possibly could. So I'm running something like this currently, but I think I'd probably recommend going Gunfeeder if you have some of the improved commanders. Is amazing on something like the Des Moines. And then you could definitely run Demo or Priority Target, that kind of thing. Maybe AA if you want to boost that a little bit. And then you'd go Adrenaline Rush and Concealment. I think Top Grade Gunner is still good, and probably Superintendent as well. I think that's enough to get you started. Des Moines can use a lot of different skills. You can really focus on whatever you want to. The ship is just a good base of, well, guns that fire really quickly. And the Annapolis is no different. So running a build like that, I think would work quite well. And then the equipment that I'm using, I was using range mod in the first game that you saw of the Annapolis, and of course reload in the second one. I believe I was running concealment actually instead of steering gears on my Annapolis, so keep that in mind. I wasn't going the full meme steering gears mod. Definitely was using prop mod. Of course, you don't have access to a fighter, so I believe I was running surveillance radar and defensive fire, healing. I think I had hydro in there as well, so a few more upgrades or a few more consumables for you to use. Again, aiming systems. The dispersion's not amazing on a ship like Des Moines, so that is more of the build that I was running, and I think it worked pretty well. Probably running something with a little more concealment would work better. It'd be a little more consistent, a little bit easier to use for sure, but something like the Annapolis is pretty nice. So that is the Annapolis for you. It's a ship that's very, very good, but I found myself wanting to play the Conda much more as far as the cruisers go, just because I feel like I can make more use out of its gimmick. The Annapolis, while very good, I find just too punishing to make use of its burst gimmicks, whereas the Conda getting that reload booster is very, very useful. But it's still a good ship and a lot of fun, and very good at winning games with its radar and high rate of fire. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.